Welcome. This is the Domain Name Law Show. We're here every Tuesday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, normally, unless something's going on. But thanks for joining us. There's three hosts to this show. My name's Todd Ryan. There's also Jeffrey Neuman and David Michaels. David, nice to see you here. What's going on with you today?
Well, I was just in some WIPO webinars on arbitration. It's a big thing, there's all kinds of arbitration that WIPO does between patents and trademarks, copyright disputes. They do it all.
Yeah, tell us. So, what was going on? It was a webinar, WIPO webinar right now, and what was
Yeah,
just.
it was a 2-hour webinar. The first part was how the structure is and what are the rules. And the second half today was about arbitrating patent disputes throughout the world. And what the procedure is. It's a lot more robust than the UDRP. You get more exchange of documents, you can do depositions, you can go see the evidence, you can go to somebody's factory and see what's going on, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know how I missed that on my calendar. Glad I did. I was getting some other things done. But yeah, I know Jeff's been overwhelmed with some obviously legal matters. That's all he deals with is lawsuits. So he may try to join us today, but no matter, we got a pretty full agenda. The outline, you can check it out at dnlshow.com/outline. And I was thinking, David, maybe sometime, I don't know, with technology, I still want to broadcast on X, so we will, but I'm wondering if we can do, the Zoom to X. Basically, I know last week Josh and I did a joint show with Brady, and he did it on this platform called Riverside. But basically, just video, and I streamed that on YouTube. But I might try some new things this year. We'll see what's going on. But David, you're right. So this is show 265. Heard you last week say, yeah, it's more than 5 years, I guess. 5 times 52 is 260, isn't it? So if there's 52 weeks in a year, and of course, I don't know, we come and go, but we're pretty consistent. So yeah, we're into year 5. Boy, oh boy. Thanks for joining us, everybody, especially if you listen on replay too. We do have replays on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. But basically here on Domain Name Law Show, we talk about domain name legal news, mostly review UDRP decisions. Those are just domain disputes that we review. Haven't had any guests in a while, so may be doing that again soon, but try to spruce up the show. As I was listening to the Lowdown by Boss Skaggs, I was thinking, yeah, we need to sort of spruce up what's going on here in the Domain Name Law Show. Once again, at the outline, dnlshow.com. You can just click on outline or go to dnlshow.com/outline and see what we're going to cover today. The first, well, David, I added one thing to the outline that you may not have seen, and that's the second piece of news. It was an article. I guess I'll just get to that right now. It was an article on Domain Name Wire, and you got to shout out to Andrew Alleman. I mean, he just, year in and year out, but basically day in and day out, he doesn't just go through, there's some websites just go through some drop lists, show you names and try to get you to buy names so they make a commission. Andrew is constantly uncovering basically some news that's hard to find, some news that's easy to find, but he makes it, it puts it all in a place that's easy for you to find, and that's at dnw.com, domainnamewire.com. And a lot of legal news. He should have been doing this legal show, years ago, because he does so many stories about UDRPs. But anyway, the story I wanted to bring up, it's on the outline, is the .co domain registry nukes expired domain auction. So apparently the .co registry, which is .co is a CCTLD, is not going to allow expired auctions just to go through. Basically, when a domain expires, if you want to auction it off, you have to get approval from the .co registry. Sounds like they just want a piece of the action, And there's a couple reasons. Just read the article and you'll see. I might as well just send you right over to dnw.com. But it's an interesting article. Talks about these registries have premium names, and when sometimes they have premium names they offer through the registry, and if somebody had registered that name early on, it may be grandfathered in at a lower rate. So when it goes through an expired auction, when someone picks it up before it actually drops, it stays at that grandfathered rate. Well, the registry thinks, dang, we want that premium pricing. So if it would drop, we'd get the premium pricing. That's one reason, and Andrew brings it up in his article. But also, of course, just wanting a piece of the action. But David, did you have a chance to read that article? I know you may not have seen it on the outline yet, but that DNW article about the .co registry?
I'm just seeing it now for the first time. So it looks like they're not going to auction off the .co names, and they're just going to let them expire and let people re-register them on their own accord. So that's all I see. I guess they might want to implement premium pricing on them at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, the interesting part of the article was somebody made a comment down in the questions and comments that I wonder if .com would ever do that. Basically, would VeriSign ever say, "Hey, we want a piece of these these prices that people pay at auction. We don't want to just they drop, they get caught, and they get auctioned off, and VeriSign just gets that regular fee." Now, I'm not looking for VeriSign to make more money, but I don't know. It's going to be so competitive. It makes me think of so many options that GTLD operators and CCTLD operators registries have at their disposal. Basically, they can work it so they get a piece of that aftermarket action, that expired domain action. Okay.
Yeah, no, it looks actually the article actually says that they're going to when domains drop and get re-registered, they do go into premium pricing if that's happened a couple of times. So yeah, they're getting greedy. They want more money. So instead of like a one-time $1,000, they want $1,000 a year for some names, forever.
Yeah. Hey, Arif, thanks for joining us. Did you have a comment or question about this?
Yeah, actually, when I started domain investing like 9 years ago, what really got my attention, well, I made the switch from collector to investor. It was an anniversary date of the .co sort of going public, and I was just, every couple times a year, I just randomly look at GoDaddy auctions, and I saw a whole bunch of like either one word or strong compound 2-word .co's. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get some of those, and I'm gonna build them out one day, right? And I just told myself, like, all the other few hundred domains I already had, like, it's not going to happen. So I told myself, I'm still going to buy these, but, I got to learn how to sell domains. That's when I joined the forums and whatever it is. But that's a different story. For .co, though, that's what it was. And it was like, yeah, there was a strategy of, first I was getting a few auctions, but then what that happened was, I let them, drop and then pick them up again. But then about a year or two later, so probably around 2018-ish or so, .co started putting in premium prices, right? And then you could no longer do that trick, right? So, but that's a full expiration. Now they want to take up the level above, which is, just the pre-expiration, sort of like, when they're still at the registrars and removing that. And again, as a CCTLD, I guess they can pretty much do whatever they want in terms of contracts. The difference with .com being is that there's no premium pricing, right? VeriSign is not allowed to charge anything other than the default rate for any domain, regardless what it is. And I think actually, like, they're allowed to actually sell like 1 letters and 2 letters, just that they don't, because they're waiting for that day when that rule changes and they could charge $1 million for like a.com or whatever it is, So yeah, it's just an interesting thing. I don't know if it'll backfire or not. I mean, at a certain point, people are still paying those basic fees, and there's a lot of people who still buy those, but if no longer be available, I wonder how many sales they're going to lose, how much volume they're going to lose. Eventually, there's still a lot of sales that they make via those expiration auctions. So I guess we'll see how it turns out in a couple of years, what their total domain count is. But it's a move that could be smart in one way, but can hurt them in the other. We'll see what it ends up being.
Yeah, one defense for the premium pricing, if I was a registry And now we over at JJN Solutions advise a lot of registries. Well, if I was a registry, I would think, okay, well, I can offer domains at $10 a shot, okay? And then what's going to happen is domain investors are going to come in, even at the crappy TLDs, the most popular single words, say 2,000 to 5,000 domain names, they're registered in a lot of GTLDs that you think are not, great GTLDs, but yet domain investors come in, and especially if the price is $15 or less for a domain registration. So domain investors are going to feast on a registry if they offer names at $10 per, and they're going to go ahead and take those names and just sit on them. And the minimum they usually will sell them for us, domain investors, we all know are, 500, 1,000, 5,000. So a registry, if I was operating a registry, I would seriously, consider what are my goals here. What is really, there's a lot to it, but I would seriously consider premium pricing to think, yeah, I want end users to be willing to pay for this, whether it's $400 a year, $800 a year, $200 a year, or even more, as opposed to as the registry, I'd rather hold them all, knowing, all right, well, we don't have a lot of registrations because we're charging $200 per year or $600 per year, as opposed to having it taken out of my hands by some domain investor who's like, hey, I'm willing to spend $2,000 on 200 names if they're $10 each, and now I have them, and of course they would need to renew them in each year, and then I'm not saying the registry is not going to make any money off of it, but the point is, it's a fine line. You have to make your decision. Basically, I'm saying I understand why registries have a premium pricing. I would say, okay, so it's not for you domain investors. Bye. You guys don't want this one. It's too expensive for you, and that's just that's what I would consider. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I would do the same thing. Yeah, I would do the same thing too. I mean, there's a sweet spot, for everything. And sometimes it's more worthwhile to sell domains for $1,000 as opposed to $10, because even if you'll get a 50th of the volume, you're still making twice the money, right? Because you're selling them for 100 times more. So there's math to be done on every level, and certain NGTLDs have certain demand where there might not be a lot of domains that are SLDs that are viable. So you got to make, for the few that are, you got to make up that revenue, right? Because it's, as we all know, it's like $500,000 to seriously get one started. And there's a maintenance fee every year, basically what it comes down to. And so you got to make that money. Otherwise you're operating at a loss, and nobody wants to operate at a loss. But, for me, there's a big difference between the NGTLDs where, those rules were predefined, and it is what it is. I think it's not, most of the time when there's premium pricing, it's not suitable for domains, but, for domainers, I mean. But it is what it is, right? I mean, I just don't operate when it's too expensive, because basically the registries become the middleman. But that was the agreement, right? However, when it comes to the original ones like .com, .org, .net, and whatever it is, there was an understanding there that those are meant for the public, and be as cheap as possible to serve the people of the world, right? And so that's where I find it's quite different when people are talking .com and .org versus all the NGTLDs. It's like, the NGTLDs, they paid that money in a private auction to own those entities, those NGTLDs privately. And it's illegally, they're allowed to do that. I think there should be slightly stricter rules in place, like in the timeline and percentage of increases per year. But that's just like little odds and ends. The reality is that, like, for me, the real ones, like the increases for .com and .org, to me, those are the ones that are really I'm opposed to, because fundamentally those are like, that's like the mad public transit, right? And whereas the other ones,
if it's .com or
NGTLDs,
.org, okay, it really is a different thing. If .com, but now they can't unravel what they've done anyway. I mean, meaning that we're not going to have to worry about them with premium pricing. I mean, the domain investors are already in on .com, .org, and even some of the others. But David, what do you think about premium pricing? Do you think it's smart to keep domain investors out? using premium pricing as a straight? I mean, why let somebody else hold our inventory for a low cost? Although, like I said, registries can make that very profitable, because especially if they think end users aren't really going to feast on our domains. So we might as well let domain investors speculate, and then they have to renew every year, and we will make money over, maybe like, they think more than we would if we kept them at a premium price. But what are your thoughts on premium pricing out of the registries?
I think the registries are committing unfair competition by doing that. So I think that should be litigated and stopped in certain jurisdictions where it's possible. If you can stop it in at least one jurisdiction where there's a major market for .co's, I think that'll make a big difference. So yeah, it's not acceptable for a registry to be able to change the price on a .co and not and keep out other speculators, because they're speculating. So why can't anybody else? So that's anti-competitive.
Well, what do you mean? Why they
Nobody's going
they're
to.
the owner. They're like, I mean, the
They
registry.
are a licensee through ICANN, just like we
No, not
are. It's a
CCTLDs
license
aren't.
of a
CCTLDs
license.
aren't even licensees through ICANN. GTLDs are.
Okay, but okay, CCTLDs. Okay, I guess that argument works better with the GTLD. With the CCTLD, still it's anti-competitive. They're still trying to sell into the Northern American market, right? They're still trying to sell into the United States and Canada. They're not just in Colombia. So they have to abide by our laws. And if they can't really unfairly compete against us because it violates antitrust laws. So that's my view on that. I'm, very against anti-competitive behavior because anything else is communism.
Well, I mean, you're saying the registry should be able. I mean, that domain investors should be able to compete with the registry, or I can certainly see why. It just strikes me when I hear whether it was the .eth, which is not even a ICANN TLD, or some of these ICANN GTLDs with premium pricing, that people get mad and think that's ridiculous. And if I was the registry, I'd think, I mean, you're mad because you can't come in and take up a bunch of inventory. I mean, if you're going to use it, then just buy this one name, whatever it is, .tech. I mean, I guess we all know end users don't mind paying $200 a year for a domain that if they felt like that's their brand and that's the name they want to use. I think the biggest challenge for those GTLDs is, like most of us think, and that is people confused with .com. They're more and more adopted, but still you have to just do that extra marketing to let people know, no, it's .tech. That is, there's no .com at the end of that, because many times people think, like, is there two dots? And then that's real confusing with those other CCTs, the .com, .au, and bullshit like that, because then people think, well, I went to .co.uk before, so two dots is not out of the realm of domain names, so why couldn't it be todd.tech.com? It's just so confusing. So, but anyway, the younger generation, and it truly is that they're understanding there's other extensions, and they're adopting them. It's just now, I think the problem is people think everything can be another extension. So you don't know, is .story time an extension? Well, how would you know? I mean, no one you just simply.
Well, the next, where's it end? Like right now, .ai registry is saying we know every name, but Fadi is getting into it, and John Berryhill, showed photos of Fadi in Anguilla with his team, and they were at some sort of meeting with the AI registry, and it won't be long before .ais are registry premium names. So that's going to be a problem.
Now clear me up on that. What are you talking about? There'll be registry premium names.
Remember a guy named Fadi? He used to be an ICANN leader, and he tried to bid up the .org registry and create premium pricing on .org names. Well, he lost on that bid, but now he's up to a new scam where he's in Anguilla and he's trying to run and change the pricing structure for .ai names. That's that's his modus operandi. So that's what I'm speculating that he's going to do.
Who is this you're talking about?
Fadi.
So he's trying to unhook the
Remember the
deal
guy
that,
who was trying to take over the .org registry?
yeah, I remember that deal. But so in was it Public Registry, or is that their name, that ended up getting the deal? But so what's he's trying to unhook the identity digital deal with the country of Anguilla, and he's trying to take
I
Anguilla
don't know
into
the
dinner.
specifics. I just know that he's trying to get his claws into that.
Yeah. I mentioned the other day .me, okay, that Montenegro extension. There, the country, made like 35% of the revenue over the last, since 2008, I believe there's been like $150 million in revenue. That doesn't, that's not net, okay? Net, it was about probably 30 to 40 million less than that, okay? But that was the total revenue, and I believe this is just off of memory that they had like in 2025 there was like 11 to 12 million dollars in revenue, just to give you an idea. So it's grown every year, but it's still not, like Anguilla. So the .me registry, which basically is a partnership. Who runs it right now is a partnership between GoDaddy, Identity Digital, and this company out of Montenegro, which is so there's these three partners run this company called DO capital MEN, and the M is capitalized, but anyway, Domen, I don't know why. So these three companies operate this and manage this cctld.me, and the country's like, we made 30%, you guys made 40%, and we should be making more than you guys. It's our country code. So they're wanting to renegotiate, and they're not happy. But I think that on it, but it just gets back to the point of, yeah. So you go to these countries, and .ai over in Anguilla, they know we made a lot of money off this. 50 million last year. We built an airport or whatever, and things look good for the next few years. We want to make sure and maximize what money we get out of this .ai. So I can understand somebody trying to say, yeah, you should be making twice as much than you're making, and then other countries. People try this all the time, like, and then that .si extension. Is that Slovenia? I guess, I don't know. But the point is
Yes,
that,
it is. Slovenia is SI.
yeah,
But look at the escrow report. .ai names are going up in price in terms of the premium ones, but the sales volume is slowing down. So that's an indicator that that market is very limited. There's a few players at the top, and not everybody's going to have a .ai name and pay a premium price for it.
Well, what I found interesting, I noticed over the years. So I had obviously done some .cos for the last like 9 years or so, maybe even a little bit longer than that, and also some .biz. I've done well with both of them in terms of sales. Not huge numbers by any means, because I don't have very many, but just as proportionally have been good. However, what I've noticed in the last couple of years is that some of them have been tagged at renewals as premiums. Right. Whereas I never bought them as premiums. In fact, I think when I bought them, there was no such thing as premiums in either of those. And when I renewed them at GoDaddy, they don't really show up, and it's the same price. When I renewed them at Spaceship, they're like $1 different. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not really gonna, whatever for $1. But at the same time, it's like, when and how did they get like separated as premium? Because as far as I know, when I bought them, premium didn't even exist. And then what's to say that in like 5 years from now, all of a sudden, those premium ones, because they're already separated, now are going to be like twice the price or 3 times the price, or $100. I just found it really disturbing a little bit, the fact that it happened, and I don't ever remember seeing any emails regarding that distinction, and I don't know what the plans are. It's a little bit creepy.
so you're being charged a higher renewal price now on the .cos. Is that what you're saying?
On some of them, no. So I know, especially for .biz, like some of them are $1 more. I think .co also. I can't remember now. It's Spaceship, but it shows up as premium. Like some of them are tagged with no premium, and some of them are tagged as premium. I'm like, well, why is this tag there
You could be
when these
tagged
domains
premium, and you
exist?
could still be grandfathered in. They're allowed to raise their prices a certain amount, and to go. So say they're just raising their price across the board. Everybody was
Yeah,
raised $1. Now your name's premium, although you're not being charged the new premium price, because if it dropped, they may have a different price. But maybe they're just flagging it, If I'm just guessing that they're saying this is
yeah.
a
That
premium
that
name.
could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could be drawn from different databases, but I know, I can't remember with the .co or the .biz, but I know one of the two, I was charged $1 more for the premium one. Now, again, it's only $1, so I don't really care. I know also at GoDaddy, the prices were the same. However, it's like the fact that they've switched it to premium tells me like, well, what's up? Why am I charging $1 more? Because I know it's only $1, right? But what happens in the day when it's like $20
Well,
or
you would need to
$50 or
know
$100?
on a non-premium name. Were non-premium names also charged $1 more? That's what we would need to
No,
know.
no.
So
That's
you
what I'm
don't.
saying.
So
Is it like
you have some other
in my
.biz that aren't premium that you were just charged that other price.
exactly in my cart it showed up some were premium, some were not, and the ones that were $1 more. I'm like, and again, I didn't go down that rabbit hole because I got so many rabbit holes going on right now. It's just for $1 is like, no. But at the same time, it's like, well, we don't say anything now for the next few years
Yeah.
because it's $1.
You don't use
But then
AI,
that
so you
kind
could just ask AI, "Why am I being charged that for a premium?" Maybe it'd have an answer for you. If not, you could just ask the registrar or contact the or
yeah.
just like you normally do, search the internet. Why is this? I'm sure there's an answer out there somewhere. You're not the only one. Hey, I wanted to get back to our outline and then get these cases underway. But yeah, on the outline, I have this escrow.com quarterly report that they put out. By the way, if you have a domain name and you need escrow services, go to domainescrow.com and you can use our calculator and see what fees we would charge at JJN Solutions. We basically just handhold you through the escrow process. If you have a transaction that you feel like or if you're the seller and the buyer wants escrow, we have fees that are less than escrow.com. But also this week I'll be adding no minimum. Right now, the minimum is $5,000 transaction minimum, but I'll be changing that on the website this evening. I was just making sure all the numbers were working and appropriate for the calculator, and then for actually you can start a transaction. And we're going to have no minimum on the amount of a transaction that you can run through escrow or run through domainescrow.com. Yeah.
That's a nice little domain. When did you guys get that?
Domainescrow.com for years, just finally putting it to use. And I was going to mention,
Nice.
that's escrow.com. So they did, and it's really, motivating to see that the transactions that are happening, they released, escrow.com released their quarterly report, and I got a link there. You can check it out. But I thought some of the highlights were, .co actually had an increase in transactions from basically they had $435,000 in transactions up to $748,000. This was I believe this was quarter over quarter, not over the quarter of last year. So I think this was just quarter over quarter. But anyway, they were saying AI basically did 10 million in transactions, 10.3 million, and then the last quarter, and then did 10 million this quarter. So it's been flat, and they're not saying, oh no, AI is already plateauing, but it really had about the same amount of transactions at escrow.com as it did last quarter. So this was the Q1 for 2026 that they're reporting on. So a little bit behind. Meaning it wasn't Q2 if you're thinking it was Q2. So they were comparing Q1 2026 to Q4 2025. And anyway, that was about talking about the CCTLDs. But .com was pretty. Was it volume for .com rose 27% from 70 million to 89 million. That was the largest growth from quarter over quarter that they've ever seen. So, if you're, it's not all transactions, obviously, but it's a very small percentage, I think, go through escrow.com, but there are large transactions that go through there. And the numbers, I don't think the report was that interesting, but it does give you some data, and people like to know, okay, so from all the folks that are using escrow.com for domain transactions, here's the numbers that they're sharing. And as I mentioned, if you want to do, they do also automobile transactions. They do all sorts of other, escrow transactions at domainescrow.com. We're only handling domains. But I was going to say an interesting point that for, I guess, ever since they've given their numbers or shared some data, domains with content always had a slightly higher price. And you think, well, of course, they had content and traffic, and it's like selling a website as opposed to selling just a domain name, a raw domain name. And this was the first time this quarter where a raw domain name with no content sold for more on average than a domain with content. So the domains without content were, I believe, like $5,500. The domains with content were just over 4,000, if I'm right. But anyway, they talk about it in their report, how this is the first time ever domains without content have a higher average cost, sales price. And felt like, yeah, raw domains, it's what people want. They want something without a website on it, according to escrow.com. So, they used to think they bought for the traffic and so on. But yeah.
But one extra like $5 million sale could totally skew that data, right? I mean, it's
well, sure, especially if
there
you're,
are,
and I would say, Arif, normally it certainly could. Definitely a $5 million sale could skew the data because it's, say, 180 millions, but especially a $15 million sale would. Now, it certainly does when it's like a 4-letter, and you see there was a few years ago in one of the quarters, I think a year and a half ago, where the average 3-letter price was, the median price was like $350,000 because there was a couple $1 million 3-letter sales. Really skewed the data when you look at a specific sector of names like 4-letter, 3-letter, 2-letter, 3-number. There's 3 character. Anyway, I have a link to the report, and what was interesting to me was basically 3-character.coms and 4-character. That means includes letters and numbers. That just not really the average price, which was 4, 5, 6,000, which was surprising me, but just to know that there's that many transactions. And we know, of course, there's a big difference in ones that mean something and make sense, but that, there's always ones that you don't think mean anything or make sense to you, or maybe even when you search it on Google, but yet those sectors, those domain names are, it's sort of like that rising tide lifts even the shittiest ones in those particular sectors. That's why I've always said, yeah, a 4-letter that's KICK, kick.com, is a lot different than KQRZ. The point is, even KQRZ goes for $80, $120. There's still a floor to it. So it is interesting to see the breakdown of the different names. All right, we'll get right to our cases. And David, if you noticed on our outline, I put, I would just go into, before I was selecting our cases to this week, I was just seeing a lot of cases that were transfers that I didn't need to look at, that just made sense that they were transferred. State Farm -com.net, Hainesbrandsvalue.com, Nestle Official, but official spelled with 1 F, .info, and Ghirardelli's with a Z at the end, .com. You can see popular brands, obviously it looks confusing. They were all transfers, and I just bring those up because people wonder. That's the most common type of UDRPs that are filed. A big brand like State Farm says, hey, this company is on statefarm-com.net, and it's confusing to our brand. And I didn't even look at the cases to find out if there probably wasn't a response at all. But if you had a response, what is your response? Well, you better be some kind of agent that's with all sorts of disclaimers on your site. And, there is probably a way somebody could use that name. But anyway, that's the most common type of UDRP. So we just see, obvious cyber squatter trying to take advantage of a big company's trademark, and the big companies use the UDRP to, stop that from happening and to get the name transferred to them without having to go to court and file an expensive lawsuit. So that's really why the UDRP was created. David, any comments on those UDRP transfers that I put in there?
All I saw was the one that was realestateBoulevard.com.
Yeah. Okay. No, now those are our cases. It was in the news. Sorry, we'll get to it. But in the news section of the outline.
Oh, in the news section, it's not highlighted, so it wasn't clickable.
Yeah.
Nestle Official, Giraldi, whatever. I think it's a chocolate. Hanes Brands Value. Yeah, those are obvious transfers. Kind
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's
of
what,
like phishing
I mean,
names.
that's what I wanted folks to know. We don't put those normally, we don't review those because they're not interesting and they're obvious cases of cyber squatting. It's like Jerry Levine says, there's this 5% of cases that are interesting. They still may be cyber squatting, or they may be a transfer, they may be a complaint denied, but 5% of the cases are interesting. The others are pretty obvious. Okay, so our first case today, let me go to it, is rapidpay.com. And of course, I loved it because I'm thinking I love pay names. And if you guys want to check out paynow.com, we got a new site going. It's awesome. Basically, if you're a merchant and, merchants need merchant accounts. And for years, but now merchants they're in a lot of different businesses, and some are considered high risk merchants. And then some merchants want to start accepting crypto. So if you're a merchant and you want to accept credit cards, or you want to accept crypto, and you want to do it sort of in a modern way. Some of it's traditional, so it's not so modern. If you just want to do the traditional accept credit cards like old fashioned and not crypto, we help you do that as well. But anyway, go to paynow.com and you can see what we're doing there for helping merchants accept credit cards and crypto for their businesses. But okay, so this name, rapidpay.com, was the domain name. The complainant in this case, Green Dot Corporation, and a lot of you may have heard of Green Dot. They're here in the U.S. They were represented by some lawyers over in Sweden. Must be nice. I don't know why that's their brand services group in Sweden. But the respondent was a company called Cyber Capital Technology out of Hong Kong. And the respondent was represented by Encore Rehida is what I got. But anyway, Encore is the attorney out of India that works for Law Solutions, friend of the show. He's an ICA member. He writes the weekly ICA UDRP digest for the ICA. And you can go to internetcommerce.org and click on UDRP digest. You'll see it there in the top menu. And so he analyzes, basically reviews 5 cases each week for really the internet commerce website, but it is widely circulated and read by a lot of panelists and a lot of IP lawyers, especially domain lawyers. And so he's not just, a lawyer that writes articles. He's also a lawyer that represents, he represents both sides, but mostly respondents. And in this case, he represented the respondent, the owner of rapidpay.com. And the registrar I noticed was Rabbit's Foot, LLC. I don't know where they are, doing business as oxygen.nyc. But, okay, so the domain was originally registered May 31st, 2015. We're talking about rapidpay.com. And it was acquired by the respondent just a few months later, August 29th, 2015. And I was like, I had to check those numbers twice to think, okay, so somebody registered it and then it was, sold a few months later. I don't know the actual price that this domain owner picked it up for, but I know they had it for sale for $199,998 because that became part of the case, against the respondent. The complainant tried to hold it against him. But before I throw it to you, David, so this complainant bought a company that owned a trademark to Rapid Pay Card, Rapid with an exclamation point Pay Card. So they bought this company that had this product called a Rapid Pay Card, and the complainant felt like, hey, since we bought this company in November 2018, or they bought, I believe, right before that in 2017. But anyway, they got the trademark, the rights to it, or basically it was assigned to them in 2018. That they felt like, okay, now we're Rapid Pay Card, and we also have a U.S. Registration for the word Rapid exclamation point. I believe, David, you can when I throw it to you, you can let us know about these trademarks if it was some kind of, what they call it, artistic trademark or logo or whatever they call it. But anyway, I'm almost done here. The complainant felt like they owned Rapid and Rapid Pay Card as a trademark. So when they saw Rapid Pay, they felt like this includes some, all, part of our mark. So we're going after it. And they filed this, of course, a month ago. A lot more to the story. I'll throw it to you, David, and then I'll chime in after you share some facts about the case.
Yeah, so this name actually was registered way back in the 90s, if you look at the archive.org history of it, and dropped, I guess, maybe a couple of times in the meantime before I got to the current registrant. It has the first Wayback Machine signal in 1996. So, and there's 191 calls on it. So this it's a popular name. It's been registered and re-registered a number of times. The complainant has a website, rapidpaycard.com, and their logo in giant letters, giant small case letters is rapid exclamation mark, and then by green dot underneath there. Pay card is not part of the mark on the top of the page, but it is lower in the page. So I guess they have multiple marks, and I'm looking at their list of trademarks. So Dead Live, they have 33. Wow. So they're going to a lot of they got a lot of marks. And yeah, these are design marks. So rapid with a $sign and an exclamation mark, and there's another one just rapid with an exclamation mark, but it's bold, and it doesn't look like it's in standard characters. It has a design element to it. It's special font. So they're doing that so they can get a registration. It's not really distinctive. And anyway, so this particular domain investor bought this name before they got trademark. And so I think that was the crux of the decision. There's just like, they didn't have anything to rest their complaint on. It was, he got the name on August 29, 2015, and it was registered May 31st, 2015. So their trademark is more recent. And they didn't get the rapid pay combination trademark until 2020. So, those are the main facts of this case. So it's obviously going to be an RDNH. They didn't have a chance of winning. And the panelist was Gerald Levine. Did I miss anything?
Well, he was one of the panelists, and he did say it should be an RDNH, but the other two panelists said no, from what I remember, and I'm going to double check. Looks like am I right here? Let's see. RDNH. Yeah, majority view too. The panel declined to find reverse domain name hijacking. Now, Jerry did say he felt like they should have known in this case, shouldn't have been filed. And he's right. I agree with him in this case. Rapid pay, we know those are two generic terms. Means paying fast pay. I mean, come on. And, even though they had that design mark for the word rapid, they really, that maybe there wasn't enough evidence by the respondent, or they just felt like, hey, this complainant did have this trademark, and Green Dot is a big company, and they had good counsel. I didn't get to see the full complaint. Of course, we just see the summary. So maybe it made the panelists who, bottom line, let me go ahead and say, so it was Wilson Jabor was the presiding panelist, and then Harini Narayanswamy was one of the wings, along with Mr. Gerald Levine. So those other two said, yeah, there shouldn't be reverse domain name hijacking here. And if you're a panelist, it's easy to say, yeah, we're not going to say they abused the system, because they do have a trademark. And especially if you lean towards brand owners, you're like, they did have a trademark. We wanted to hear what this, domain owner had to say when they filed this complaint. So we had a legitimate claim. And then there really was a solid response, and we're going to deny this complaint. But I think Jerry is just savvy and saw through the bullshit of knowing, listen, guys, this rapid pay is an attractive domain name for a lot of reasons. And the good news about this decision is that they did say that $200,000 asking price is not, was not a cause to, basically was not, they wasn't asking so much and so much more than the person paid for it, that is an obvious, you know, proof of cyber squatting. Felt like, hey, when you have these fantastic domains like this, they can go for a lot. But anyway, I think Jerry's just more familiar with domain values than some of these other panelists. But anyway, so there was no reverse domain name hijacking, but Green Dot did lose the case. They were the complainant. The domain owner gets to keep the name, and the domain owner was out of Hong Kong, and he was a domain name, domain investor. So, when you have a valuable name like this, you do need to get some good counsel. But I think if they didn't have counsel and they responded themselves, I would hope that the decision was the same, that the complaint was denied. And it says, the case demonstrates that ownership of trademarks containing descriptive elements does not automatically grant exclusive rights to every related domain name combination. Of course not. And the panel found it more likely than not that the respondent purchased the domain as a generic descriptive investment rather than to target the trademark owner. I think we can all agree with that. I mean, any reasonable person that knows anything about domain investing, and panelists certainly would know, they probably like this for more reasons than just the trademark owner. Go ahead.
I think
Yeah,
this
I
is
want to
a
mention one
really
more thing.
good. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, David.
There's this disclaimer in the trademark registration that they have in 2004 that was assigned to them in 2018 for rapid pay. The word pay card is disclaimed. So that is telling right there. It's not distinctive. And this is the design version. And this was assigned. There's 13 assignments in this trademark. It's amazing how many hands it went through over the years.
Yeah.
So it may have been some investors who had this name in the past, or one of these predecessors had the name in the past. We don't know. But anyways, just wanted to mention that.
Go ahead, Eric. Yeah, he was saying pay card, they couldn't trademark that term. So it's like, basically, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say this is like a good example of why, like, really educating yourself on these things is really important, because in one sense, yeah, the rapid pay, depending on the paperwork and the evidence, it could, quite easily, the complainant could quite easily justify the first prong of UDRP, right? Meaning like they have their own trademark that's legit, but at the same time, it could also totally validly not make the case for the second and third, right? So, as a domain investor, we target domains with generic words in them, right? Rapid pay, it's extremely generic, right? And we could look at that domain and salivate over owning it as a domain investor without even knowing about the existence of the company, right? And same thing for bad faith, right? I mean, if we're looking at good keywords that are generic in purpose with multiple potential end users, then it's totally legit for us to get those, and there's no way that could be considered bad faith. Now, it shouldn't be, but again, some panelists see things differently. But it's just, it's one of those ones that fall in the spectrum of, if you don't understand the distinction between the three parts of the UDRP, you might confuse one and go, okay, well, yeah, the complainant has a trademark, so the case is lost. No, it's not. It's not even close to being true, right? In some cases. And I think this type of domain is really one of those ones where it falls in that zone where I think, yeah, they could win the first element of the UDRP, but, very, very, have a very difficult time winning the second and third unless the respondent actually did something, put up, the things that made it look like the site belonged to the complainant. Otherwise, it's a very difficult argument, I would think.
Well, you bring up some good points there that many people think they had a trademark prior to my domain registration, so I automatically lose. No. And they think, oh, I did know about them. Like you said, with rapid pay, people would think, I think whether you could be a savvy investor or just a brand new domain investor and think, well, that's a good name. And you, of course, think, I didn't know there was a rapid. And then when you find out there's a rapid and rapid pay card, I'd think, well, of course there is. It's such a great, good generic type name, fast pay. We do it all the time with pay now. How many companies use the term pay now? If you're in the pay space, you can't own that word. Now we own the .com, but my point is you can't say nobody else can use the term pay now. Go out to dinner tonight, go to lunch. Somebody, when they hand you the thing, it says pay now. It's so common of a phrase.
Whenever I check out at Spaceship, I always think of you because that button says "Pay
I
now."
know. And no, in every place. And the truth is, many times you might be aware of a trademark under a domain that you're picking up. Like you're looking at them on expired list, and you think, there's a place down the street that's called that. It could be a business, just a local business with not the full term, but part of the term. And you're thinking, well, that doesn't mean you can't own the name. And many times people think, I did know of the trademark owner before I got the name. That's not good. Well, it's not true. That's why I was going to say, when you own a name and you get a cease and desist, or you get a actual, UDRP filed against you, reach out to a professional. And even if you can't afford representation, or you don't think the name is worth a lot, you can reach out to us here. Reach out to TODD at JJNSolutions.com, or Jeff at JJNSolutions.com. I'll certainly tell you, hey, here's some similar cases or similar names, because that's why we post these things on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And I say the replays of this show, because on those replays, you can see the outline and you can see, okay, rapidpay.com, here's the link to that case. And if you had a name that was similar, you can look at that case and think, okay, how can, I need to answer this UDRP myself, because I don't believe my name is, worth spending $5,000 for counsel or more. And I don't have the capital, even if it is. So, that's why you look at similar cases, similar domain names, and think, yeah, I have a similar defense. But, you can do some things yourself, especially. That's why we have this room, so you can feel comfortable knowing, yeah, maybe I don't need to respond to that cease and desist. Or if I do, I need to respond appropriately and firmly. Just don't be afraid. This is just business. And it's like, listen, every time someone threatens you or does anything in any of your business, you don't immediately like, hey, I got to hire a lawyer. Many things you're going to want to handle yourself. And then when you feel like, hey, this is, when it's time, when it's worth, getting some support, basically engaging with legal counsel, hopefully you're smart enough to know when that is the time too. But okay, so that name, rapidpay.com, stays with the domain owner. And if you go to it, it's got a GoDaddy lander. They're basically still trying to sell it for $200,000. Boy, I love it. I mean, it's a good name. I could see somebody, wanting it. 200,000. I can't think if that's high or low, because I love pay names, and I know we would, if we didn't build on Pay Now, we would want 200,000 minimum if it was just a raw domain name, at least more than that. So now building on it even much more. But before we move on to the next case, David, if you just own paynow.com and then to UDRP, what would you price rapidpay.com? What would you price that at? Just, shooting from the hip.
250.
Yeah, I'd be lower.
250,000.
I'd probably be sub six figures, but deep into the five figures. But again, I don't really buy those types of domains. Like, I don't know what the person bought it for, right? It's kind of interesting, the whole thing. It was like 2 months later they acquired it after it got created. So I wonder what the story of that is.
Yeah, I'd probably be right in closer to David than you ever, only because we see so many pay names sell in the five figures that really don't have two words that mean something together. Like they might even be pay rapid, or pay rapidly, which wouldn't be good as rapid pay in my opinion. But there also we see CR pay or XX pay, and you were like, how'd that go for 50,000 when it really doesn't?
Yeah.
But yeah,
you're not wrong. Yeah, if somebody told me it sold for 200,000, like it wouldn't surprise me. I don't I don't know if I would price that, but it's not that strong.
Yeah. And we know as domain investors, you got to hold them till the right person comes along. A lot of people are like, no, but you be patient with a good name and see what happens. All right, if you're following along on our outline, dnlshow.com/outline, you can see where we're at. We're on case number 2 today. This one is Real Estate Boulevard, but it's BLVD. RealEstateBLVD.com. And I thought it was an interesting case, and I'm going to give something away. The guy had it for sale. He was going to sell it to the company for his cost, and the company still wanted to file a fucking, excuse my language. What happened to me when I was a kid? Um, Still wanted to file a
Isn't that the AXA
UDRP.
name?
The complaint, this was real estate blvd.com. You were following it, David. So this was that complainant, the Real Estate Boulevard LLC out of Florida. They just had the in front of it, the Real Estate BLVD. That was the complainant, and they were represented by a law firm. The respondent was just a guy out of Texas, responded himself. And so the domain realestateblvd.com was a GoDaddy. The complainant, first used his full on, with the in front of it back in 2018. He's in real estate, obviously. That's important because so is the respondent. But the complainant got a design trademark registered in May 2019. The key about this case, well, I'm going to let David say the very key about it, when this domain was registered. So the complainant had a design trademark registered May 7th, 2019. David, tell him when this disputed domain name was registered and then the outcome of this case.
In May, I think it was May, hold on. I just had it. I think it was like early May or late May, I should say.
It was May 9th.
But
it was 2 days
he actually
later.
had a website on there.
It was 2 days later, May 9th. So this was registered
2 days later, yeah. So he had a website on there for a while, and then he switched to a Wix lender, and I guess he never built a Wix page, and then he decided to forward it to his other website, and that was used against him. But go ahead, tell the rest
Keep
of the
going.
story.
I'm loving it. He's right. So basically, the guy registered the name 2 days after the registration was, it wasn't applied for. The registration was issued for this trademark on May 7th, and then 2 days later, on May 9th, 2019, this guy registered this domain name. So, yeah, in my opinion, if I was a panelist, I think that's pretty close. Probably was watching the registrations. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's two parts to this. So the complaint actually has two trademarks. The first one is the design mark that includes the word Florida. Real estate itself is disclaimed. There are other trademarks with the word boulevard and real estate in it, owned by other people, like a company named Mirza in New Jersey. No connection to you, Arif, I guess, but yeah, so real estate and boulevard are, they are not necessarily distinctive of any one particular owner. And so the real estate boulevard was applied for on August 18th, 2020, claiming use since April 30th, 2018, which I dispute because they were using the real estate boulevard Florida at the time. So they can't have the same specimen for both marks. But anyways, that makes a difference in terms of differentiating it from B Boulevard Real Estate owned by Mirza, and another company has just Boulevard Real Estate. So, these are very weak marks, and real estate is disclaimed. In this kind of situation, I would take a hard look at fair use and look at the archive. Unfortunately, the responded and didn't address the issue of, oh, he never used it. Yes, he did. He actually had a website there. I could see it on archive.org. So, a good response would have helped. It could have saved the name and kept it. And he's based in Texas. He's a real estate developer in Texas, complains in Florida. They're not really competing with each other in any way, shape, or form. And real estate and boulevard are generic. So you type in those words on Google, you're not going to necessarily get one or the other if you're not in their respective jurisdictions. So, yeah, I think it was a bad transfer decision. What do you think?
Well, the guy, I think he would have done better if he didn't respond at all. Because he responded and he was saying, like respondents do. He was like, well, I'm using it, BLVD real estate was a business of mine, and so that's why we got real estate BLVD. And they're like, well, you didn't provide any evidence to support that, and so we don't, you bring it up, and then you were redirecting it to your website that's competing. It's a real estate website, competes with this complainant. So the 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 panel just felt like, I just don't believe you. You registered it 2 days after the mark, and we know people can, look at the registry and see, okay, this type of name was just registered. The guy, if he needed to really address everything and then provide some evidence of his claims, but he just was answering stuff, saying, I have a right to it. So, I just didn't like from what I see, his answer. Now, let's see, under bad faith, what did the complainant prevailed, of course, but several facts were important here. Let's see, I wrote down the domain was registered just 2 days after, right? And then both in the same industry, the redirect, the domain just redirected. It wasn't, it wasn't like he needed that name, real estate BLVD. Not that, I'm on the fence. I don't think that's very generic. It's like, oh man, real estate boulevard. I think adding that BLVD makes it, uh, even street's more generic, but I still think that's almost like a brandable if you say real estate street. But after receiving a cease and desist letter in September 2022, the respondent stated he had removed the website. So, however, the domain continued redirecting traffic to his competing website. So, I don't know, the panelist, it seemed like the panel concluded that the respondent intentionally targeted the complainant's trademark for commercial gain during that certain period of time, and that's why he said, okay, I'll take it down. So anyway, it was ordered transferred by this single member panelist. I think his name was William Hamilton, who I'm not real familiar with, but that one I sort of agree with the decision, only because this guy had a chance to answer and fumbled it. If he didn't respond at all, maybe then the panelist would have looked more to just the complainant side and said, you've presented plenty of stuff, but we don't know the answer from the respondent, so we can't assume, although sometimes panelists do. But I think obviously it couldn't have gotten worse if he didn't answer, because it was transferred anyway. So this one, unlike, yeah.
So I think the panelist made some mistakes there, because the trademark wasn't applied for until August 18th, 2020 for the real estate boulevard. The one with the word Florida in it, design mark, that's a different mark. That was done in 2018. So I don't see that as being the same thing. I don't see that as targeting it whatsoever. Yeah, that's a big difference, because adding the Florida there and adding the design element would make most people believe that that is the predominant thing of the mark. If I'm looking at their logo, the real estate boulevard is like a sign, like a green sign, like you'd see on the street, and it's smaller font than the entire logo, and it's like a seal with a circle and big circle around the state of Florida. So yeah, that's the real estate boulevard is a minor part of that. And real estate boulevard, it's just a segment of it. And the word "the" really makes a difference. There's a difference between North Face and the North Face.
That website is terrible looking. The
Anyway,
real
you need
estate
somebody
boulevard,
who
it's like,
knows how to argue these cases.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that website, the real estate boulevard, looks like it's not even really, I don't know. It's got that logo, like you said, up the top. It doesn't even look really active. Bottom line is, I think their better defense could have won this one, but certainly had a shot at it. But yeah, this guy, I think anybody in this room would have answered a little bit better. Just slow things down, okay? Slow things down and use AI. Use AI if you don't have an attorney, and say, look at other answers. It can, look at other similar cases, and then you can also tell the AI only address the issues that the complainant brought up, and be clear on what evidence I need to submit along with this answer. And you can always tell the AI too, do not cite anything unless you're 100% sure, and then double check and triple check to make sure that anything that's cited, and I'm talking about what you would do if you absolutely can't afford someone with the experience here. Okay, because right, there's no, the best is, using all tools. That means all research, and research goes right through AI. Okay, so every lawyer is going to be using AI if they're smart. It's just you're researching. So if you're using Westlaw or LexisNexis, you're going to be, you know, basically using search tools. And there's some lawyers that are better of doing research than other lawyers. Okay, but you never just rely on one uh, one tool. But so the point is, if you can do a lot on your own, especially domain disputes. They're made for it. That's why these brands have this opportunity, this option to file a UDRP without having to go to court. The good news is, you as the domain owner, you can, almost, if you need to, you feel like, what, I did register that in, it was their trademark. I knew about it. And I, really didn't put it to demonstrate any legitimate use using it. You still have a defense. But what I'm saying is, you can give it away without going, oh no, I have to answer a lawsuit. I got served. That's why we benefit, domain owners benefit from the UDRP just like a brand owner does. And then, of course, it's not, in court where you have, well, you can represent yourself, but if it's a corporation that you have your domains owned under, then you still need to get some legal counsel. But the point is, a UDRP, you can answer some things yourself, and I just think, take advantage of, um, all the tools that are available. And then, of course, information that we share here. Okay, so I'm going to get to the last case. Geez, it's already 1:08. Boy, it was a lot of fun today. Um, yeah, Jeff's going to join us next week. He's reached out. He's handling so much business. And then okay, so this final case, AXA.org. I just added that one because it was such a big name. And okay, so this AXA. You've probably thought, am I familiar with that company? Big insurance company, French insurance company, worldwide. Is it like 90? Was it 95 million clients worldwide? I have no idea. It's just enormous. But they're a insurance company, a financial services company. They do all sorts of things. But they so the domain here was AXA.org, and the complainant, AXA, out of France. Just told you, this big company has this big law firm representing them. The respondent, VV Reddy, out of India. Interesting, Encore, who I was mentioning writes the UDRP digest for ICA, that weekly digest, represented the first client in this case for Rapid Pay. He also represented this client, the domain owner for AXA.org. Now, this company, AXA, the big company that was the complainant, they own AXA.com, AXA.net, .info, and this was a single member panelist. So I think it was pretty risky, for the respondent to not have a 3-member panel, but they went for it, and I think they had they proved to have a pretty good defense. I'll get to my comments on it, but first I'm going to throw it to the total documented invested claimed. Was this the one? Okay, so I confused about the last case, saying the guy wanted to sell the name just for his cost. This was the case. So very interesting. But David, let me throw it to you, and then when you're tired of talking about it, you can throw it back to me.
Yeah, so AXA.org was registered in, I believe, 1997. The owner, respondent, acquired it for $1,500 through GoDaddy by Buying Rep, and renewed it for a number of years. He actually was hosting consumer experience events and American consumer experience events. I guess this is all happening in India. And what they're doing is basically selling Indians the dream of, hey, show up at our events. We'll show you how things work in America, and maybe you can actually, get a job in America. But they're like, it's basically a training session. You go there and you pay, I don't know what kind of currency this is, but it says $350. I don't know if they use a dollar sign in India or not. But anyways, the dollar sign's on the right-hand side. I've never seen that before in an English-speaking country. So yeah, they did actually have a good website that promotes their events and lets people sign up for it. There's 3 event prices. And yet the panelists said, oh, he never used the website. It's kind of big what they do or what they sell. Well, they don't sell services, they sell events, different kind of business. So there was legitimate use in it. If you go to .db, AXA is registered in 268 TLDs, both in GTLDs like .bot, .partners, .wine, as well as some CTLDs. And there are over 13,000 domain names that start with letters AXA. So how can this one insurance company complain that they own the mark globally and absolutely everywhere? There's a site in India called axa-abs.co.in. So, even in India, they might have a trademark for insurance, but they don't own the mark for everything, every possible category. Anyway, I think that the complaint was an overreach, but it wasn't an RDNH, and it was denied. But it's good that Law Solutions was able to respond coherently and save the day for this guy. What do you think?
Yeah, I like when you said, I was looking at the West Side Story lyrics of, that let me see, let me go back to it real fast. I like to be in America. Okay, bet me in America. Everything free in America. When you said that America experience, people want to be here. Okay, well, the panel said, I don't know if I believe they're trying this America experience. Fucking bullshit. Basically, the panels even said, I don't know if I really buy that, but I do know, and I like that the panelists said this, I do know that there are other uses for AXA.org than just by that French company. So it's weird that the panel would say that. It said the panel expressly stated it was satisfied with the respondent, that the respondent was aware of AXA and its trademark. It says, however, that we talked earlier, knowledge alone was not enough. The panel found there was insufficient evidence that the respondent acquired the domain because of AXA or to exploit AXA's goodwill. And but the panel did question respondent's story. The panel described the America Experience Association rationale as artificial and stated that the concept appeared confected, meaning manufactured to justify the registration, which a lot of domainers do. No, I got it because it means, some bullshit. And the panelists said specifically the website gave only vague explanations of the organization, and there was little justification for calling it American, but still no bad faith. The website wasn't clear, but just there was no bad faith because the panel felt like 3-letter domains have a substantial independent value in themselves, and even AXA can function as a name, a word, or an acronym apart from the complainant's mark. But but interesting. This guy did buy it. I think I have the amount, and then he renewed it for a few years. He bought it for $1,200. Yeah, purchase price $1,550. He owned it approximately 7 years of renewals, $100 a year. He said probably 7 years renewal. Oh, the 7 years total was $100, which makes sense as a doggo. So the total documented investment was $1,650, and the respondent said he would sell it to him for about that price. He just wanted to get his money back, and they filed a UDRP against him, this big French company. Man, does that make you like the French more? Okay, I'm not going to put them all in one basket or bucket, but boy, I'll tell you what, that's just unbelievable that they wouldn't buy the name for $1,650 when we know that's roughly the cost of a UDRP. But anyway, now I'm assuming that the guy would say, okay, now that you had me do this and I had to hire this lawyer, you need at least pay me, my fees, or what I had to spend on the lawyer and my expenses. This guy just seemed nice, this domain owner. But okay, well, that's going to be it for today. If you have any questions or comments. We'll take them real fast before we close up. Anything, anybody, any hand raising there? Giving you a chance. Arif's up here. He's in the boat. We're just cruising down. It's like, I guess it's Italy where they have those guys, and you have to duck your head. You go under a bridge and stuff like that. Canals. All right. Well, I really appreciate everybody being here. Join me and Josh this Thursday, DNX show. You can go to dnxshow.com. I'll be putting up that outline. Basically, a lot of topics. If you want to, go on my timeline and you'll see the DNX show. If you want to put a topic you're interested in, we just talk anything domain investment related. We have a lot of topics we're going to cover this Thursday. It's every week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Josh Reason and I talk about domain name investing, and we'll touch on some other domain news. There's a lot of it that's coming out. But anyway, so be sure to see you on Thursday. Everybody take care wherever you're at, and enjoy the rest of your day or rest of your evening. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.